So Lisa, we can't wait to hear what's been going on with you, and thank you for being a part of this conversation. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's been a whirlwind of a few weeks that as animal welfare professionals, all of the things that we'll be called to do are things we're strong at, right? We're good at disaster response. We're good at disease control. We just have to move it from the animals to the humans. We're good at drama and calming things down when the world throws crazy at us. It's just all happening in real time and cubed to the normal. But we've really just spent some time talking about, okay, this is a really big deal and this could be really intense, but this is our skill set and we're a strong team. So together we're going to get through this.
How is your staff? You have staff in DC, you have staff in New Jersey. Mm-hmm. Tell us what's going on. And are you seeing a difference in the two locations in the way that they're responding?
No, I'm not seeing a difference in how they're responding. One of the things I tried to do early on is set the tone for innovation and say, you know what, it's all right for us to try things and tweak them. It's all right for us to announce something to staff and then have to correct it a little bit because we figured out a better way. We're going to be taking in new information all the time. And so we have to be a little bit forgiving about perfection. And the important thing is to do our best with the information we have at hand and to try new things. And to the extent possible, look at this as a time where maybe we can reinvent some of those things that have been bugging us. Maybe we can try to solve problems that have been vexing us. And so that was sort of the overall charge that I gave to people. And that was what we talked about as a leadership group. And so I think once things started happening, the team started responding in a similar way because they were being treated the same and they were being asked the same things. That being said, the concerns are different, but the team spirit is really the same. The very first meeting that we had to sit down and talk about this, we did a variety of things. We talked about what is truly essential need to have, what's nice to have, and what can kind of fall off the plate for now. So we sorted everything we did into those three categories. That need to have category held up pretty well because it became what both the city and the governor of New Jersey called our essential services. So we were already thinking about what our essential services were going to be and how we were going to do those. For us, I think that some of the things that might change forever, likely will change forever, is that immediately in the first week, we made plans to get as many animals out of the shelters as possible. So we did special adoption promotions. We did a huge push for foster care. We got to the point where week before last, we were getting 40 calls a day from people wanting to be fosters. So now we have a bench of people who are waiting for an animal, and we actually don't have enough animals for all the fosters. But I think it really begs the question of who needs to be sheltered. What animals really do need to be sheltered? I mean, we have stray animals on their stray hold in foster care right now. So what do we need brick and mortar for? How much brick and mortar do we need? So that's one question that we're asking. Another is, how big can our foster program be? Like the pants of it are kind of stretching right now, but if we put resources into that program, how big can we make it? And what resources do we have to put in to support that going forward? It's probably going to be training kind of foster big brothers and big sisters to support each other, listservs, Zoom meetings, online training, more medical care, more medical support. So we're taking a look at that. All our adoptions are happening virtually now. And so people do virtual meet and greets of the animals who are in foster care. They do virtual conversations with our adoption counselors. And so does that mean we can have volunteer adoption counselors working from their home if they're well trained to do a placement? And then when we came up with our kind of worst case scenarios, one of our worst case scenarios was that an employee would get it who worked really closely with a lot of other people, and an important team would have to go into quarantine. And so that happened because it was one of our veterinary technicians, and she had been in really close quarters with a lot of people. She didn't have symptoms. She didn't end up having it. She didn't know she'd been exposed. So she was doing things like bathing animals and giving vaccines to animals. And so a number of our medical staff were exposed very early on, and all had to self-isolate for a week. And, I think that we learned early on that we would get through that, and that this was probably going to be a rolling reality, and that other people would step forward to do the work. We were really lucky that the employees who had been exposed gave us permission to share their names, so that it wasn't this one of your colleagues has been exposed. We could say a name. We could say, Katie is doing really well today. She doesn't seem to be sick. And I think just making it more personal like that, and actually having a conversation with people made a big difference. But, we have spreadsheets upon spreadsheets in terms of teams. We had sent out a lot of documentation about self-care, and we actually bought thermometers for every staff member, and we're asking them to take their temperature at home just to make sure everything looks okay before they come in. I think intellectually I knew that this could come at us really fast and we would have to start changing what we were doing. But in the early days, I felt like we could kind of have a plan and get ready. And the reality is sometimes you're getting bombarded with new information over the course of a morning, and everything is different at noon than it was at 9 o'clock. And so I think just kind of getting in the headspace that things are going to change. A lot of us are perfectionists in this field, and there's a saying that the perfect is the enemy of the good. And I think you just have to do good. You have to do your best with what's at hand right then. I'm really glad we put a working group together at the very, very beginning and started having daily huddles, daily phone calls, and we've kept that up. And it's just, that got really, there was maybe like 10 days into it, that got really clunky, and we were all getting frustrated because we felt like we were making group decisions about everything. And so we decided, okay, what are the themes in what we're talking about? And so we broke into themes of operations. So let's put an operational subgroup together, and they will talk every day and then report out to the rest of the group. Staffing and financial resources at a very high level. How could we take a look at what is the worst case scenario if we take in no earned income between now and the end of our fiscal year in September? And what do we do about that? So we have a team that worked on that. We had a people care team who just looked at what do we do for our staff? Everything from how do we help people feel calm to how do we react if a person who lives alone gets sick? How do we get food or supplies to them? And so they've developed this weekly wellness newsletter that's completely separate from news. It's just about taking care. And then we have a animal welfare citizenship subgroup of how do we not just be our best for Washington, D.C. and New Jersey, but how do we be the best citizens in animal welfare generally? And so those groups have kind of broken up and are working independently and coming back together. So I think creating nimbleness is important. And then I think the hardest thing for me emotionally in all of this is, like, I want to be there in the trenches every day of every minute. But the reality is what I do does not require me to be in the trenches. And so I've got to keep myself safe for me. I've got to keep my staff unexposed to me. And so it's hard not to be in the trenches every day. And I would just tell leaders who may feel the same way, because I'm sure there are a bunch who do, how important it is to find other ways to connect with your staff other than, contaminating them every day. That that there are ways to share information, there are ways to connect, ways to be in touch, ways to reassure that don't require physical presence.
So we heard that during your social distancing period that you're hanging out with a guy named Tedford.
Ted Word.
Ted Word.
Ted Word, yes.
We want to see Ted Word.
Yes, okay, let me see if he was just finishing his hair, so let me see if he's ready.
Okay.
Video. So here's Ted Word.
Hi, Ted Word.
Oh
And
my goodness.
True story. I was trying to get Jim Tedford to adopt him, and I thought Tedford might seal the deal. But he wasn't ready.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
He's very handsome.
yeah, so he is actually liking the social distancing. Yeah, I think he's in a daze right now, but
So I forgot all the details of his story, but he came from a litter of puppies, I believe, that you fostered last year. Is that right?
yeah, so we, in 2 days time in summer of 2018, wow, we took in 30 dogs from a hoarding house in West Virginia, and then the next day we took in 29 dogs from a dog fighting case in DC.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, and then of course, one of the dogs from the hoarding house broke out with parvo. So we have now 50 dogs who've been exposed to parvo who've just flooded the system. So we put out a call for fosters, and I said, well, I'll take the pregnant female who's been exposed to parvo. And I don't remember if I asked Matt how he felt about it or just showed up with the dog and personal protective gear. I think it might have been the latter. And she ended up giving birth in my office. And this little one actually wasn't breathing at the beginning. He weighed 1 pound, 3 ounces. And so I had to bottle feed him. And we got very intimate with one another. And he kind of rode around in my shirt for about a month. And I tried a lot of things. I actually talked to Sharon Harvey about adopting him. I reached out to my network, but I think he was just meant to be mine. So one day I finally figured it out. So I think one lesson we've learned that doesn't surprise us at all is what a generous, compassionate, connected community that we're all part of in animal welfare. And just the fact that you're doing these video chats to show support to people. I think it's very important for everyone to remember you're not alone. We may not be together, we may not be seeing each other, but we're all fighting the same battle and we all care about the same things. And so don't get isolated. The chances are that by now someone in animal welfare has thought about something that you might be thinking about, or is afraid of something that you might be afraid of, or is trying to make a big change that maybe you made a couple of weeks ago. And so I think community is really important right now. There's some great web groups, Facebook groups, and I think everyone should just lean in to their colleagues. And the answer is always going to be yes.
Lisa, you really are an incredible leader. And we're so grateful to have had you today to talk to everybody. And looking forward to seeing what you do next.
Well, I've got to say, I have the most amazing team. I pinch myself. I mean, I love them, and I'm honored to work with them, and I'm learning from them as well. And so I think that credit where credit's due.
Excellent. Well, we're excited, as Kim said, to see what you guys do next. Please tell your team we're thinking about them.
Thank you.
And that we're here, and if we can lean on each other, we will continue to do so. And just thank you for leading by association, leading by example, and keep up the great work. And you tell Tedford that we'd like to see more of him on Facebook.
I will do that. Maybe he'll get his own page. He has a little bit of time.
That's true. That's true.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so
Take care.
much,
Great to
Lisa.
see you guys.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.